While calm appears to be returning to some areas recently rocked by the fallout of the EndSARS protests, tension still pervades other parts of the country. As a result, the Chief of Army Staff has ordered top army officers to take charge of their commands and end the ongoing breakdown of law and order. In the Federal Capital Territory, rampaging youth still force their way into warehouses in Gwagwalada, while their counterparts in Kogi also raided a warehouse in Zone 8 in Lokoja, carting away various items. Meanwhile, the National Economic Council sets up a committee to engage youths and other stakeholders in employment, social safety nets and national unity. But as rampaging youths continue to loot COVID-19 palliative warehouses across the country, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tuku Burate, is asking principal staff officers, general officers, commanding and field commanders to be on maximum alert in order to deal decisively with any attack on their duty locations. Speaking on behalf of the Chief of Army Staff at a meeting with top military officers in Abuja, Army spokesperson Colonel Sagir Musa says the recent activities by some unscrupulous elements shows their desire to acquire arms and ammunition at all costs from security personnel. While asking the commanders to arrest this emerging trend, the Army chief said 10 AK-47 rifles have been lost to miscreants in the last 2 weeks across the country, with attendant loss of lives of personnel.
General Burate further alerted the PSOs, GOCs and field commanders that the recent activities by unscrupulous elements have shown their desire to acquire arms and ammunition at all costs from security personnel. No less than 10 AK-47 rifles have been lost to this miscreant in the past 2 weeks across the country, with attendant loss of lives of personnel. He charged commanders to nip in the bud this emerging trend at all costs and directed them to warn their troops on internal security or on guard duties outside the barracks to be at maximum alert at all times and to also deal decisively with any attack on their duty locations. Lieutenant General Burate concluded that there is no choice between a democratically united, strong, and prosperous Nigeria and a nation disunited in a state of anarchy and retrogression. We must all strive for a united, strong, stable, and progressive Nigeria.
It seems Nemesis is catching up with some of the perpetrators of the looting across the country, as the Kwara State Command of the Nigeria Police says it has arrested 144 suspects in connection with the looting of the malls over the weekend. The Commissioner of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, told journalists that the combined forces of the security agencies led to the arrest of the looters. He urged members of the public not to hide the looters, but provide information that will lead to their arrests.
A total number of 144 suspects have been arrested, and a large number of stolen items, looted items, have been recovered. I want to again assure you our resolve. The combined forces of security agents in this state to ensure that we make as many arrests as possible and recover as many stolen items as possible.
A group of rampaging youths today broke into the COVID-19 palliative warehouses located at the Gwagwalada Area Council on the outskirts of the nation's capital, Abuja. The youths who thronged the warehouses located close to the area office of the Nigeria Immigration Service carted away various edible items. Some of them also made brisk business selling some of the looted items at the spot as security operatives watched the action.
It is a sea of heads as rampaging youths converge on a facility containing COVID-19 palliatives at the Gwagwalada Area Council in Abuja. Attempts by men of the Nigeria police force to disperse the crowd using tear gas is rebuffed by the youths, who remain adamant. The youths proceeds to loot the warehouse while security operatives watch. Some of the youths berate the government for failing to distribute the palliatives.
Very brief food for the they share, no great share, don't finish. We don't see food. Now what do they want to share the food? They want to carry out campaign.
You enter into that store. If you enter inside that store, they have not even reduced it half. People are dying, hunger and starvation every day, and they have this kind of food in their store, stored there to do what? To feed their ancestors. Possess our possession. So this is part of our possession. We are possessing it as patriotic youth of this nation.
They also speak on the reason for their actions.
May God Almighty have mercy for our leader. What is happening here today? I don't know who come and rescue us from this property. Come and open the house. And may God Almighty forgive them their sin.
I am a full-blooded Nigerian. This is our COVID-19. What Buhari government is supposed to give us.
While others struggle to take the loot home, some make brisk business selling the items. As soldiers and other security operatives remain on ground to prevent the youths from setting the warehouse ablaze, the looting continues. Commercial motorcycle operators also cashing on the situation to transport the looters and their loot.
Meanwhile, looting of government facilities continued also today in Lokoja, the Kogi state capital, as residents besieged a warehouse in Zone 8 to help themselves to relief materials stored there. A similar incident occurred on Sunday night at ADP warehouse when it was invaded, and several bags of fertilizer, water pumps, bags of rice seedlings were carted away. There were sporadic gunshots today, which led to people scampering for safety, closing shops along Murtala Mohammed Way. A journalist was also shot in the incident. The police public relations officer, Mr. William Aya, said the gunshots were from hoodlums who were trying to scare people away to enable them gain free access to their loot. The Commissioner for Information, Mr. Kingsley Fowell, who spoke to Channels Television on telephone, described the situation as unfortunate, saying that the people were sneaked into the town by some others who are bent on causing mayhem. Here in Lagos, the Judicial Panel of Inquiry and Restitution set up by the government says it has received over 10 petitions as they are set to begin sitting tomorrow, October 27th. The panel was unable to sit today in Lagos because the 2 slots meant for the youths is yet to be filled. Retired Justice Doris Okwobi, who heads the panel, also explained that they would have commenced today, but because the 8-man quorum was not completed. Our correspondent, Victoria Idowu, reports.
Not violate any law or statute.
The law establishing the Judicial Panel of Inquiry says that a quorum must be complete 8-man panel. That means this panel, set up to investigate police brutality by the disbanded SARS unit, is not properly constituted and therefore cannot sit.
There will be no sitting.
Chaired by the retired Justice Doris Okwobi, the panel has received close to 15 petitions, but will not be able to sit until 2 youth members are sworn in. Members will therefore regroup on Tuesday, October the 27th.
The panel will definitely sit tomorrow because the composition will be complete by tomorrow's session. And the list of nominees came in late. But the law setting up the panel requires that they should be sworn in to participate in proceedings at the panel. So the swearing in of the two youth members has actually prevented today's sitting. The swearing in will take place by the executive, will be taken by the executive. As soon as they are sworn in, they should be here with us tomorrow.
The panel, which has a 6-month deadline to complete its assignment, has the support of the Nigerian bar.
We are here to help them articulate and properly present their petitions to this panel. And the Nigerian Bar Association will be doing this pro bono in Lagos and also around the country in the other 26 states that have so far set up their own panels of inquiry.
According to the chairman, compensations will be made to victims immediately the cases are determined and will not be delayed till the end of the 6-month period.
We are looking forward to memoranda from those affected by the unfortunate incident of the shootings by the military. The panel as we stand today has nothing less than 10, 15 complaints and petitions. So we are indeed ready to commence the public sitting.
For the next 182 days, the panel will sit every Tuesday, Friday and Saturday and will hear petitions from people with evidence of police brutality by the disbanded SARS and evidence from the Lekki shooting. Victoria Idowu, Channels Television News.
In Edo State, Governor Godwin Obaseki says all hearings of the Judicial Panel of Inquiry established to look into the circumstances surrounding the EndSARS protests in the state would be public and covered by electronic and print media, with adequate security arrangements provided at the venue. The governor stated this during the swearing-in of the panelists in Government House, Benin City, where he encouraged all with grievances related to police brutality to take their petitions to the panel. The panel consists of 23 members drawn from different bodies, including the Nigerian Bar Association, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, and the National Association of Nigerian Students.
The panel is to advise on compensation or restitution to the victims, or where the victims have been killed, to the family of the victim, based on conditions which shall be clearly laid out by your committee. To ensure that compensation is paid within 14 days of the decision to compensate. To recommend and direct the Attorney General to immediately prosecute all persons responsible for the various crimes committed. To recommend measures to forestall reoccurrences of such incidences in the future, and to make any other recommendations to government in furtherance of your mandate. You have a maximum of 90 days to complete this assignment, and I hope it will not be extended.
In part two, after the break, Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo presides over the National Economic Council meeting. Plus, the Nigeria Governors Forum denies allegations of hoarding of palliatives meant for distribution to Nigerians to cushion the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Join us again. Welcome back. If it has joined us to watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos, a reminder of our top stories. Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, orders principal staff officers, general officers, commanding and field commanders to deal decisively with any attack on their locations. Nemesis catches up with 144 youths alleged to have been involved in the looting of property in Kwara State as other Rampaging residents break into warehouses in Abuja and Kogi, carting away various items. National Economic Council sets up committee to engage youths and other stakeholders on employment, social safety nets, and national unity. Cameroonian women take to the streets of Yaoundé to protest the killing of children in the ongoing war in Anglophone regions. The National Economic Council is recommending that deeper issues behind the EndSARS protests and its fallout should be tackled by both the federal and state governments. This was part of resolutions reached today by members after about 4 hours of the emergency meeting presided over by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. As part of that, the Council constituted a committee to engage the youths as well as representatives of civil society organizations, religious and traditional leaders on issues of employment, social safety net programs, and national unity, among other critical matters. The committee, to be chaired by the Vice President, has the governors of Sokoto, Borno, Niger, Ondo, Ebonyi, and Delta as members. Also in attendance at the meeting were the FCT Minister, Central Bank Governor, Inspector General of Police, representatives from the military, the Directorate of State Security, and the National Human Rights Commission. And following the nationwide looting of warehouses stocking COVID-19 palliatives, the federal and state governments have been urged to immediately release all relief welfare materials. That's coming from the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress, the NLC. In a statement signed by its president, Ayuba Waba, the union says it strongly believes the distribution of the palliatives by the authorities will help assuage the sufferings of the people. While condemning the mass looting of both COVID-19 palliatives and non-COVID-19 items in the country, the NLC says this would not have happened if the government was sincere. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Governors Forum has denied allegations that governors hoarded palliatives meant for distribution to Nigerians in order to ameliorate their sufferings during the first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the forum, governors have held several meetings since the EndSARS street protests started to address concerns of members of the public and that they identified calls for justice and an end to police brutality. The forum, according to a statement by its spokesperson, has since set up judicial panels of inquiry to look into such cases. The statement reads in part, "The NGF regrets the loss of lives and property occasioned by the violent protests that erupted and calls for calm. The erroneous impression in the public domain that these palliatives were hoarded is not just inaccurate, entirely erroneous and untrue, but also mischievous, to say the least." The NGF declared that no state has been involved in or has hoarded any palliatives. The NGF also says it's assured all contributors to the palliatives that prior to the looting of these warehouses, states had kept full account of all items received and distributed. Members of the private sector-led coalition against COVID-19, CACOVID, have called for calm and the backdrop of the continuous looting of COVID-19 palliatives from warehouses in various parts of the country. In a statement released today, CACOVID says it has been working with state governors and the FCT minister to distribute food and relief items to over 10 million Nigerians. But the lockdown, large size of order, and production of food items hindered its timely distribution. According to the coalition, the official flagging off and handover of palliatives has taken place in 28 states and the FCT, as state governments have been distributing at their own pace. CACOVID says it will be sharing details of external audit reports of spendings, delivery and planned flag-off dates of its donations to Nigerians as it pleads with rampaging youths involved in the destruction of private and public property to desist from such acts and allow state governments to distribute the palliatives to the most vulnerable in society. To the lawmakers now, the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, is promising youths the National Assembly will ensure justice for all victims of SARS abuses. The commitment contained in a statement personally signed by Senator Lawan says the National Assembly will also work with the executive to ensure that the 5-point demands of the EndSARS protesters, which the government has committed itself to, are fully implemented. He explains that in spite of the unfortunate hijack of the protests to unleash violence, arson, looting and wanton destruction of public and private property in the country, the National Assembly will ensure that government fulfills the commitment it made to well-meaning agitators for police reform and good governance. The statement reads in part, "I call on our patriotic youths to leave the streets as government has heard their voices and is addressing their grievances. This is also necessary to avoid unwittingly continuing to provide covers for the criminals and fifth columnists in our midst. However, as regards those criminal elements unleashing terror on our cities under the guise of the protest, I urge the security agencies to forthwith, but with utmost restraint, restore law and order across the country and bring the criminals to justice. While still grappling with the havoc of COVID-19, the country can ill afford yet another epidemic that has now appeared in the form of the lawlessness that is going on. The Senate President expresses his condolences to victims of the violence, as well as families of security and law enforcement agents who paid the supreme price in the course of their service to their fatherland. In Cross River State, Governor Ben Ayade has ordered the relaxation of the 24-hour curfew imposed on the state capital, Calabar, and its environs to contain the destruction caused by some youths in the state. In a press statement, the governor said the curfew will now last between 4 p.m. and 8 a.m. daily, with effect from tomorrow, Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. Before that decision, Governor Ayade undertook an inspection of places destroyed by rioters, expressing shock over some of the reasons adduced for their action.
The streets of Calabar has become isolated with restricted movement of humans and cars since the declaration of a dusk-to-dawn curfew by the state government over the incessant looting and vandalization of both private and public properties. The incident, which was orchestrated by mostly young persons, took advantage of the peaceful EndSARS protests, causing a near breakdown of law and order in the state capital. Inspecting some of the affected properties, the governor, along with some security agents, expressed displeasure over the unwarranted display of anger by the youths.
This is not acceptable. Why would somebody go beyond the boundaries of logic, the boundaries of hunger, and just take to the level of vandalism, arson, and destruction? What are you venting on? What has this got to do with SARS? And I think that those who started this peaceful protest, this was not their intention. This was not their intention for sure. And that's why in Calabar, where I'm talking to you right from now, there's a growing concern by those who were the originators of the EndSARS protest in Calabar to come together and also do a peaceful march and say this was not their intention.
The governor also made it clear that the state will no longer tolerate any unlawful practices, lamenting the economic implications of the destructions.
Cross River State does not have the money. We don't have the money. We're one of the states with the lowest allocation in the country.
The State Commissioner of Police, Abdulkader Jimo, commends the state government and other security agents so far in restoring peace and normalcy in Calabar and other surrounding towns. He therefore appealed to the citizens to avoid any act which would lead to a further breakdown of law and order.
Level of carnage, I believe the Cosvarians are peaceful people. So I also have intelligence that some people came from Kasi who are suspected of militants and from other states to wreak their havoc.
Residents are hopeful that with the renewed assurance from the state government and the security personnel, normalcy will be restored and economic activities kickstart to forestall any further breakdown of law and order in the state.
When the news at 10 returns, federal government announces plan to create 5 mission jobs for youths through its solar power initiative. We'll have more business news. Join us again. Welcome back. Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma has expressed displeasure over what he describes as carnage unleashed on the state a few days ago by those he described as hoodlums and mercenaries who hid under the guise of the EndSARS protest to cause mayhem in the state. The governor urged stakeholders to warn their children and wards against being used as tools to destabilize the state and assure the people of plans with security operatives to maintain peace and order. He made this known in his address at a stakeholders meeting organized by the state government in Owerri to address the agitation of youths in the state.
In the last 1 week, Imo State in southeast Nigeria has had its own share of the violence that resulted when rampaging youth, under the guise of the End SARS campaign, hijacked the peaceful protest to cause mayhem.
Everybody back!
This led to the burning down of about 9 police stations, and 5 security operatives were killed in the process. Public and private property destroyed, and some looted, forcing the state government to impose a curfew in all parts of the state.
Captains of industry.
Although calm has returned, Governor Hope Uzodinma, in a bid to address the issue and ensure peace and order, is convening this stakeholders meeting.
Your Excellencies.
He highlights what the government has done so far and what it intends to do.
My administration is the first in history to commission 7 completed projects in 7 months. 7 roads have been started and completed between January until date. Over 10 more roads are ongoing and nearing completion in different parts of the state. Adapam is back on stream after so many years. All payments in and out of government treasury have been automated. Thereafter, the automated process for prompt payment of salaries and pensions will be guaranteed in no distant time.
The governor also seizes the opportunity to explain some of the steps being taken to support youth in the state.
Your Excellency, this is not the time of talking too much.
Some of the stakeholders commend the governor for his proactiveness and make their contribution.
That you have called your people today to tell them what you have done and telling them what you intend to do shows that you are a true leader. I'm proud of you.
Let each and every one of us in this meeting, having heard this message from you, let us attend those meetings in our various local government areas so that we can further drive home this message, especially the decision of government to rise up to the occasion to ensure that all of our sons and daughters who are in the street or who intend to hit the streets will have to face the wrath of the law.
The consensus at the end of the meeting is that stakeholders present will take the message to their various local communities to further educate the youth to embrace peace and prevent a recurrence.
The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has condemned what it describes as the unconstitutional and illegal fines of 9 million naira imposed by the National Broadcasting Commission on Channels TV, AIT and Arise TV over their coverage of the End SARS protests. The Acting Director General of the NBC, Professor Armstrong Idachaba, announced the fines today. In a statement by its Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, SERAP says this action by the NBC is a display of the Nigerian authorities' push to silence independent media and voices. It asked the NBC to drop the fines and respect and protect freedom of expression and media freedom, threatening to go to court if the unconstitutional fines are not rescinded within 48 hours. The Nigerian Union of Journalists, NUJ, is also kicking against the fine levied against the 3 broadcast stations by the National Broadcasting Commission. In a statement, the president of the union stated that rather than muzzle the media, it should be applauded by the NBC for its coverage of the protests and the professionalism of journalists who risked their lives to ensure comprehensive coverage of the protests. He called for an end to what it describes as open contempt and disrespect for the media by the NBC, noting that the fines imposed on the media houses are unnecessary and should be withdrawn immediately. In the wake of the destruction of property and killings witnessed in some parts of the country as part of the fallout of the End SARS process, there are a lot of financial obligations to be met by insurance companies. Aware of this responsibility to its customers, Coronation Insurance, formerly known as WAPIC Insurance, is assuring its clients of proactive and prompt response to claims. In a statement, the Chief Executive Officer of the company, Mr. Yinka Odukoya, acknowledges the immense losses in human life and damage to property and assets, saying the last thing their clients want is a painful and challenging claims process. Part of the statement reads, We believe that insurance companies must ensure their clients do not have to wait for assistance after a disaster occurs by proactively collating information of damage and losses, as well as responding to claims with speed and precision. We are well aware that our customers are dealing with numerous difficulties at this time, and the last thing they want is a painful and challenging claims process. We want our customers to return to their normal way of life as soon as possible and have put in place a claims response platform for real-time communication and easy sharing of loss evidence to fast-track claims processing. The company wants its clients to use its dedicated helplines for emergencies and speak to its experts for advice and assistance on what to do next. It says Coronation Insurance channels are available 24/7 so that clients can make inquiries and report claims seamlessly and minimize physical visits. For inquiries, claims, or purchases, the company advises its clients to visit www.coronationinsurance.com.ng or call the contact center on 01-277 4500, 01-277 4566, or email contactcenter@coronationinsurance.com.ng. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has reinstated the state government's stance against the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, whom he says are responsible for violence and destruction in parts of the state, while insisting that Rivers State cannot be annexed to any state or region. The governor was meeting with local government chairmen, youth leaders, and community development committees chairmen across the state government. Across the state government house in Port Harcourt says even though Rivers State is very accommodating, it will not allow criminal elements to overrun it.
Igbos are living here, doing their business here, and they'll continue to live here and do their businesses here. We'll support that. But that terrorist group called IPOB cannot determine what will happen in our state to tell us where they own in this state. It will never happen. And we must not allow it to happen. So I have called the citizens and the youth bodies and the council chairman. It will be a shame to any local government in this state to allow IPOB to say they have a possession in this state. Enough is enough.
And we're shifting to a different gear now. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has raised alarm over the looting of its medical warehouses containing essential medical equipment, test kits and other valuables to aid COVID-19 response in the country. The National Coordinator of the PTF, Dr. Sani Ali, who made an appeal to the looters today to return stolen vaccines, expressed shock over the massive plundering of warehouses by angry youths across states. Our correspondent, Gloria Mizaki, reports.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 began the weekly briefing with a major challenge on their minds. Not a non-adherence to the wearing of face coverings, but the looting of its medical warehouses.
We also call on all who are in possession of vaccines, medicines and other equipment and consumables to please return them. Those that can still be salvaged will be used, and those that cannot will be disposed of properly.
The PTF National Coordinator explains how 1.7 million Nigerians across several states have been earmarked to benefit from the general relief efforts of COVID, and the process which he appealed should not be truncated, be allowed to continue.
The sheer scale of the food program by COVID meant that the program had to be delivered in a staggered and controlled manner. Out of the 11.7 million supplies ordered, 11 million were confirmed to have been delivered. And in terms of the schedule, 17 states had 100% delivery, and a kick-off exercise was conducted. We do understand, of course, the underlying issues, but we continue to ask and we continue to plead with the general public to exercise restraint and allow this process to conclude.
Another central concern for the COVID-19 task force is a possible spike of the virus in the coming weeks if the situation remains unchecked.
We have gathered in our masses for whatever reason, and now we have to kind of keep our eyes open to face the potential consequences. But those consequences are not inevitable. We can still do our part to prevent them.
The PTF further urges state governments not to shut down isolation centers in preparation for a potential COVID-19 resurgence. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Business News is next. Here's Anwar Wudu.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Amarachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. The federal government says it is creating massive job opportunities for youths across the country through key programs in the Power Sector Initiative. The Minister of Power, Mr. Saleh Maman, also made this known during a stakeholders meeting in Jalingo, the Taraba state capital, on the backdrop of the EndSARS protest. According to him, the initiative, which is being supported by the central bank, includes 5 million solar home system projects, the mass metering scheme, among other projects. He further explains that plans are already ongoing with a target of 1 million meter installation at least by December this year, while installation and maintenance of meters will be largely carried out by youths in the country. Telecom giant MTN Nigeria has appointed Mr. Carl Toriola as the Chief Executive Officer designate to replace the current CEO, Mr. Ferdinand Moolman. Mr. Toriola, who joined MTN Nigeria in 2006, is currently the Vice President West and Central Africa, excluding Nigeria and Ghana, a position he assumed in 2016. In a statement sent to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the company says that its appointment, which comes after a thorough and rigorous selection process, takes effect from March the 1st next year. Meanwhile, the South African telecom giant says that the outgoing CEO will remain on the board of the MTN Nigeria as he assumes a new role as the MTN Group's Chief Risk Officer. More than 42 billion naira, that's the amount gained at the close of business today on the Nigerian stock market. Investors are still setting off a positive note for the week, with bargain hunting amid concerns over Nigeria's economy. Let's hear more from BC Adebayo.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Despite the major upheavals in the country last week, the market maintained a bullish run as investors went bargain hunting for stocks today, pushing the index higher by 0.28%. Now, investors basically took advantage of lower price stocks, which were dampened by the social unrest in the country last week. Volume and value were quite impressive, as we can see here, compared to what we saw on Friday. About 5 billion naira was realized from the sale of 340.8 million shares in over 4,000 deals. Now, things are looking quite good for the sectors today compared to what we saw for most part of last week. All the counters gained except for insurance, and that could probably be because they have their work cut out for them due to all the vandalism seen in recent days. The trio of GT Bank, Zenith and Warwick Insurance were the most traded for the day. With lower yields in the fixed income space, it's expected that investors will continue to show interest in the stock market as equities still offer a better return on a dividend yield. And that's it on the Stock Market Report. I am BC Adebayo.
Thank you. On the other hand, it's a negative start for the week for most world-leading stock markets. Investors are reacting to the plunge in oil prices as well as a surge in COVID-19 cases across the United States and Europe. Let's see the closing figures for today. that's Business News tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Marachi.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Cameroonian women hit the streets of Yaoundé to protest the killing of children in the ongoing war in Anglophone regions. Plus, more stories from our London studio and around the world in 5. Stay with us. Cameroonian women today took to the streets of the country's capital to protest the killing of children in the ongoing war in Anglophone regions. The protests come in the wake of a mass shooting in a private school in Kumba, in the troubled southwest region, on Saturday, which left 7 children dead and 12 others wounded. Here's Simon Pusa with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A senior aide to President Donald Trump has conceded that the US is not going to control the pandemic. Instead, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said COVID-19 could only be defeated by mitigation areas like vaccine and therapeutics. His remarks come as coronavirus cases surge in the US 9 days before the presidential election. Democratic presidential challenger Joe Biden said the White House was waving the white flag of defeat. China is once again mass testing an entire city for the coronavirus amid a regional outbreak in Xinjiang province. Around 4.7 million people in Kashgar are being tested, with 138 asymptomatic cases found so far. China has been largely successful in bringing the infection rates down, but there continue to be small outbreaks. New measures to combat a surge in cases have come into force in Italy, with gyms, swimming pools, cinemas and theatres all closed. Restaurants, bars and cafes must stop table service at 6 p.m. and offer only takeaway until midnight. Contact sports are prohibited. However, shops and most businesses will remain open. And the Australian city of Melbourne will exit lockdown from Wednesday after recording no new COVID-19 cases for the first time since June. Victoria State was the epicentre of Australia's second wave, accounting for more than 90% of its 905 deaths. The state capital, Melbourne, went into lockdown 111 days ago, enforcing home confinement, travel restrictions and closing stores and restaurants. Groups of workers and students in Belarus have taken part in a nationwide strike called by exiled opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. Workers at some state-run plants downed tools and chanted slogans outside the gates, while hundreds of students also marched out of several universities in Minsk. They're calling on President Alexander Lukashenko to resign. In response to the strikes, the government says key enterprises are still running smoothly. There have been jubilant scenes in Chile after an overwhelming majority voted in support of rewriting Chile's constitution. The celebrations come with almost all the ballots counted. So far, 78% have voted yes in a referendum that was called after mass protests against inequality. Many argue the constitution, which dates back to the military rule of General Augusto Pinochet, is out of touch and not fit for purpose. President Sebastián Piñera praised the peaceful vote. Armenia and Azerbaijan have accused each other of violating the latest ceasefire over the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh minutes after it came into effect on Monday. The US-brokered ceasefire had been announced in Washington on Sunday. 2 other ceasefires agreed earlier this month over the conflict were broken almost immediately. Fighting erupted on the 27th of September around the mountainous enclave, and the conflict has intensified again in recent days. Opposition parties in Tanzania are claiming the government are making it harder to accredit thousands of opposition observers who want to ensure the vote is fair ahead of Wednesday's election. Incumbent President John Magufuli, seen here campaigning earlier, has been criticised for severely stifling dissent since his 2015 election win, notably barring opposition parties from holding most public gatherings. There are warnings the issue could lead to violence, with parties saying they won't allow polling stations to operate without the observers.
The kind of violence that we're beginning to see is different. This time, the regime is scared, and they are going to be very, very violent, because in a free and fair election, we will win fair and square.
And finally, after clinching the top scorer award in the Women's Chinese Super League, Zambian footballer Barbara Banda is inspiring girls at home to follow in her footsteps. The 20-year-old won the Golden Boot of China's top flight after scoring 18 goals in just 13 games, double that of her nearest goal-scoring rival. The powerful forward, playing her debut season in China, finished the campaign 9 goals ahead of her nearest challenger, Temwa Chawinga of Wuhan Jinhua. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. South African police have confirmed the arrest of 5 suspects over the 2014 murder of Bafana Bafana captain Senzo Mayiwa in a major breakthrough in a case that stunned the crime-ridden nation. The 27-year-old goalkeeper and national squad captain was gunned down at the home of his pop star girlfriend, Kelly Khumalo, southeast of Johannesburg during the evening of October the 26th, 2014. In the English Premier League, Colin Grant scored his first goal for West Brom to rescue a point and deny a frustrated Brighton their first home win of the season. In only his second game since joining from Huddersfield Town less than 2 weeks ago, Grant collected a low cross from Callum Robinson and crafted space before firing home an equaliser with 7 minutes remaining. Manchester United midfielder Paul Pogba has denied media reports that said he quit the France national team over comments made by the country's President Emmanuel Macron, which were perceived to be against Islam. The media alleged that Pogba has quit the national team following Macron's comments. To tennis, where Novak Djokovic says it will be amazing to equal childhood hero Pete Sampras's all-time record of ending the year as world #1 on 6 occasions. Djokovic will make sure he matches the great American by winning 2 matches at this week's Vienna ATP tournament. That's it on Sports News. Amarachi, back to you.
Thanks, Olumide. And the main news again, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, today ordered principal staff officers, general officers commanding and field commanders to deal decisively with any attack on their locations. And the private sector-led coalition against COVID-19, CACOVID, today called for calm in the face of the continued looting of COVID-19 palliatives from warehouses, asking those behind it to stop. That's News at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.